Hello, everyone. It's Charlene Lee, and I'm excited to be sharing today my experiences with what we call vibe coding. So those of you who don't know about it, it's this idea that you can just have an idea or an emotion or and be able to just use prompts with a tool, an agent, and create code and products. So, as a would-be coder, again, I don't know how to code. I know some very, very ancient old HTML from my publishing days, but I've done a little bit of coding here and there, or just been exposed to it. So I have a little bit of an idea of how coding works, but I have no idea how to make these products. I have this one product idea that I've always wanted to build. So I thought I'd give it a hand, and today I'm going to tell you how it went, but also to explain to you why vibe coding is so important and why we as business leaders need to pay attention to this. So let me get into this and talk about some of the key points around vibe coding. All right, let me get my slides going here. All right, so here's the idea. What if a project manager could just create a prototype in an afternoon without having an engineer? What if an operations team could solve their own scheduling nightmare without having to use Jira or call IT? So these are some of the benefits of being able to code and create products or solutions right at your keyboard without having to go talk to somebody in IT. And for IT, this is a great idea because you can work through your backlog of IT projects much faster potentially if you could just tell an agent or a tool what it should make without having to sit there and create all the coding from scratch. So I think this is what vibe coding is, where this barrier between an idea and the implementation could exist. So my question for you all today is, if you could make any product, if you could have code, if you could make code or basically have a magic wand, what would you make? Where does your imagination take you? What could make your work easier, better? What could help your team or your organization if you could create products literally out of thin air? So that's what I want to talk about today, and talk about what's real right now and what isn't. And I live here in San Francisco in the middle of all this tech and hang out with IT people. They go, "We love vibe coding. It's amazing. It's great." But they're all IT people. But could somebody like me, who has a little bit of knowledge about how technology works, actually create a product? So I gave it a hand. I gave it a try. I want to share with you what I actually did. So let me just give you an idea also of what's different now. There are all these tools, and in particular, I use things like Replete, and I also use tools like Claude and Lovable and many other tools to try to create lots of different things. And the thing is that this is really again about agency at scale, and you as a leader need to understand it. All right, so let me get into what it is. Vibe coding is creating software with just an intent, just literally a prompt. So you start with a prompt, you iterate the product, and you don't need a lot of technology skills. I will caveat that. So as you'll see in just a second, and you can really use these tools to reflect the way you want to work. And this is a major issue in that I believe that in the future, again, we have all of these enterprise tools and apps, and they're designed to a lowest common denominator. But what if I could get my tool, my enterprise tool, like my CRM, create a little plugin for it to work exactly the way that I want to work? So the way I work is maybe a little bit different than my colleague who's sitting at the next desk. So the idea that I can have that agency, that ability to optimize the way I work and have tools that are personalized to me is the real potential, I believe here. So I again, the idea here is that if you have a tool or an agent that can do all of this for you. It's basically it's you can code, you can design, you can deploy, you can make these things live. So let me get into what I wanted to build. So I do a lot of organizing with different groups. In particular, I'm a part of YPO, which is a Young Presidents Organization, a group of CEOs, and we meet on a regular basis. And there's 10 of us, as you can imagine, this is a scheduling nightmare. And so I wanted to create something that could uh, schedule everyone without having to use Doodle or send out a poll or just really just look at people's calendars. And you can do this because if you're on a platform like Google Calendar or Outlook 365, then you can make your calendar public with a secret URL and show your free and busy times. So this is fantastic to, if I could tap into everyone's calendar, then I can see all of their availabilities and schedule a meeting. I use Calendly, for example, to schedule all of my meetings, but that's just me. And it's easy to do this inside an organization if you're using tools like Outlook, where you can see everyone's calendar and schedule a meeting. But if people are outside of your organization, it's literally a nightmare to do. So I wanted to have it so they can get access to anyone's calendar. And with this one, with this minimally viable product, I decided to just use Google Calendar. It will find and scan across those calendars to find open times, and again eliminates all of that back and forth. So let me take you on my adventure of how I made this, and let me just share with you the slides so that you can actually see where they are. They're at Vibe Coding, Vibe-Coding-CLI. And I think Jay is here. Jay, sorry, I didn't send you the slide, the URL the best. We could share it into LinkedIn. That would be great. Oh, and Jay actually has this to share. Something that he would want to create something to do all the Q&A work on all the comments we review, about halfway done on it. Oh, you're actually making this. So Jay, would love for you to share it when you have a chance, and just if you want to share some of the tools that you're using, how you're actually building it, because I find it fascinating when people are actually building these tools. So great to see that. All right, let me get back into the slides and show you actually what I did. So I started with Lovable because so many of my friends said, it's great, it's fantastic. So I jumped in with a prompt. I had it actually, this is the prompt that I shared. So create a group calendar, etc. And then it did a really nice job creating a beautiful front end. And it also could pull from the Google calendars. It was able to do that, find the calendars that I gave it, but it couldn't send the invite. So it could find the times, it actually find the open times, all the functionality worked, but it couldn't send the invite. And the reason was it just kept getting stuck on the Google authentication. So you can see what the interface looks like. Super clean, super easy to use. The prompts are on the left side with my chats. And then I have the actual app that I'm creating on the right side, where I can actually start to just see what the progress was like and test it. So this is fantastic. Again, when I had tried this earlier with Google Gemini or ChatGPT code or Claude code, it would give me the code, but then I didn't know what to do with it. I mean, like, it gives me code, but where do I put it? And Lovable just made that so much easier. I didn't have to think about it. But the reality is that I had to set up a lot of the back end. And so it required that I go into GitHub, set up an instance in GitHub, which is where the code is actually living and stored. It required that I go into Google Cloud, set up credentials, set up OAuth authentication so I could sign in. And then it also had me set up something on Supabase, which is where it would keep all of the secret information, all the API keys and the secrets. I learned a lot. So this was really hard to do. And my learning curve was super steep, but I learned a lot about what's required to actually make something happen on the front end. So again, as somebody who knows a bit of HTML, the front end was pretty intuitive, looked pretty easy to straightforward to set up. But the back end, man, I was hanging by my fingertips. So this was a much more difficult thing to do, I found. And in particular, I found that this was just, I could barely hang on and figure out how to do it. So in the end, what happened was Lovable ran into some problems with Google authentication. And you can see here are some screenshots of it actually thinking and working through. I was trying to figure out what's going on with the calendar, and it just could not figure out why I couldn't get into Google Calendar. I'm sorry, into my Google account, authenticate, sign in, so I could send the invitations out. So I decided to take a whole new approach. started with Google Gemini and said, basically, I went and watched a bunch of YouTube videos to say, what am I doing wrong here? So, and a lot of them just said, you need to have a plan. And so I went into Google Gemini and started asking it to give me instructions on how to best do vibe coding, how to prompt the engines. And it said, you need to think about how to set up each of the stages. And having gone through Lovable, I could see also how the stages really made a difference. Instead of just giving it that single prompt, actually give it the steps that I wanted it to take to be very specific. And so Replete was fantastic. It was a really easy system to use. Here's the interface. It's a little bit more complicated than Lovable. But what was great is that it set up the entire back end for me. I didn't need to set up GitHub, didn't have to end up using Supabase. Everything happened inside of Replete. So if you are a complete novice when it comes coding, have never done anything, gone near anything, highly recommend that you check out Replete and just give it a try, because I think that's the easiest way to get started. I think Lovable is a beautiful interface and it worked beautifully, but it does require a little bit more know-how of how to set up things like the back end, like GitHub. Uh, and then what I wanted to do was, but also what Replete was really good at, is that if it required some information from things like Google Cloud, it gave really detailed instructions. Go to here, give me a link, go to this place and get it set up. And then it gave me a little form to put what that information was, that API key or that secret, right there into Replete. And then the preview window was just super easy to use, very easy to test and troubleshoot. But it also got stuck. So, so one of the things, this is the thing I wanted to put in here, is that Google Gemini was really helpful. So one of the things it did, it would get stuck. And so I was asking it, like, where do I actually find these keys? Because the instructions on Replete weren't completely clear. I had already set up these credentials in Google Cloud, but I still couldn't quite find it. And so having Google Gemini up there sitting next to me was fantastic, because it gave me very, very detailed instructions. It would literally say, look at the screen in the upper left-hand corner, look at this and click on that. So it was really good at that. So in the end, even with Replete, it kept getting stuck on Google Authentication. It just couldn't figure it out. And again, my trusty buddy, Google Gemini, recommended that I do a reset, because there was probably some code that was stuck. And it went and continues to be this really good guide, because things would get stuck. And what I realized was that it could see what was happening inside of the app, but it couldn't see what was happening inside of my browser. So in the end, this is what I did. I this is literally the most technical thing I could do. I went in and could open the view inside of my browser to look up the developer view and open up my JavaScript console, took a screenshot of what was happening, and could then send it to Replete, and they could see what was wrong. And even that still didn't quite work. So still debugging it a little bit, and I'll tell you just a little bit what was going on. Uh, when I show the screenshot to Google Gemini, it could tell me this is what's going on. There's some code someplace else in the back of the script. Go and clean it up. So again, these are some of the things that debugging an app, not just building an app, is so important. So I want to show you what I have. Okay, so this is the actual product. And one of the things that I just realized, I don't have the URL, but if someone could type in that, I'm going to try to grab the URL real quick, and I'll put it into the comments so that you can see where it is. And I'll make a quick banner. This is fun to do this on the fly, but this is where you can get the app. With a caveat that it still doesn't quite work. It was working yesterday, it doesn't work again today. But this is where you can try the app. You can put in as many number of people as you want, but I'll just spin through what it does. So here's a scheduling view. You add in the name, the email address, and then the URL for the calendar. It then asks you to give some meeting configuration. So, how long do you want it to be? When do you want to schedule it by? The days of the week and the beginning and end times. And what's really cool about this, it takes into account the universal time conversions so that even if people are in different time zones, it understands that it needs to be scheduled between 9 and 5 o'clock my time. So that I'm not waking up in the middle of the night. And the other thing it can do then is send me all the times that are available. I can pick one of those times and then set up the meeting itself. Like these are the times and places where again, the details would go into the calendar invite. So the meeting description, the location, the Zoom invite, for example, and the description. And again, just summarizes it very briefly, like confirming that this is the time you actually want. And then this is the place where it gets stuck. I have to sign into Google, so it sends from my Google Calendar so that I can manage the event as needed. And what happens is it gets stuck. So I'm literally troubleshooting this right now. So fingers crossed, when you give it a try, it will work. Uh, a couple of things that I do want to say. I wanted to show you that entire process because vibe coding does work, but two things, two big caveats. You need to know how programming works, how coding works. And you need to have a bit of that technical backend because right now it's not completely there. Not all of it is there to just make it seamless and easy for you to do. So it's going to get better. Vibe coding is only a few months old, the existence of vibe coding. And so this is really early on, but you can see already some of the potential. If someone like me, who's technically a little bit proficient in understanding how these tools work, but really doesn't understand how any of it works, and I can't write a single line of code, can make an app like this. And it took me over the course of a couple of days, about 4 or 5 hours to make that. And if someone like me can do this today with these basic tools, imagine what it's going to look like in just a few months or even even in a year. So I think that's the real potential here. So I want to go and talk about some of the implications for this. So first of all, uh, this is shifting about who has the ability and the permission inside your organization to build this future. Again, it's no longer just the people who have access to these tools, who understand the technology. Anyone, anyone can build solutions. Anyone who understands and sees a problem can say, "Oh, I can make that go away. I can address that." So this is the whole idea of pushing this capability closest to the people who have a knowledge of what the actual problem is. And so the employees closest to the problem can now build the solutions themselves. They can call on IT to help them with some of the back end, making sure, and IT's responsibility is making sure all the tools work, that they're compliant, that permissions are there, that you're not accessing data you're not supposed to, that you're not deploying things that you shouldn't be. But it basically reduces this huge bottleneck that we have in engineering and IT. So some examples are, if you're a customer service rep, you can build a specific plugin for you. If you're in HR, you can design a new onboarding flow so that a new set of employees with different needs can have a personalized flow to meet their needs. So again, I think that as leaders, we need to be thinking about what this capability means for our organization and be exploring what this could look like, what it could mean, even though it's messy right now. I can guarantee you, you can find value from this by testing to see even people who have not full knowledge of how to do vibe coding can articulate their ideas, work side by side with somebody in IT who can troubleshoot along with the tools and actually create more of these products and tools. And again, get rid of that bottleneck in IT and engineering. So some best practices around how to do vibe coding. You have to think like a project manager. This is the one thing that I have found to be true. Understanding what's the pain point. What's the problem you're trying to solve and to clearly articulate that. And then also, what is good enough? What is a minimally viable product you can live with? So start super small. I had these grand plans for my group scheduler, and I really had to boil it down to the most essential pieces. Do it with just two people. Do it with just Google Calendar. Again, figuring out the way to send the invite, an email with an ICS uh, email attachment for a calendar invite just doesn't work because no one knows what to do with that. So it needed to be a native calendar invite from something like Google Calendar. Prompt like a human, meaning just be conversational, continuously iterate. I would say things like, it's still not working. Let's try something different. Maybe we can start from scratch. So I'm asking these tools to constantly improve. And the thing that I find interesting is that if you have it like a conversation, you're treating it like that assistant, then it actually is going back and forth instead of just trying to make it from scratch. Build in public. This is the reason why I'm sharing it with you. I'm hoping that it inspires you, but I'm also hoping that somebody can help me figure out why the heck doesn't the Google authentication work? So again, building in public, or at least within your organization or team, instead of keeping it secret, making it perfect before people see it, is a key tenet to vibe coding. Create these safe places for people to play and experiment. Again, if people don't feel safe, if they don't know that they can use this data or can create these solutions without getting in trouble, they're not going to experiment. So lower the stakes, make it so that people can play, have things fail, and that it's okay. And then celebrate the builders. Again, this is so important in creating an experimental culture. Recognize just people taking the initiative, not the fact that it worked. So I'm thrilled to share with you my group scheduler, even though it doesn't work, because that's the only way I'm going to get to the place where I'm going to improve. All right. So, want to just give you a couple other ideas on things that you can do. Again, just going to share my slides here. Some sample projects you can try. For example, you could have a meeting summary generator. So you may like to have, again, you may be using some of these note taking tools, but what if you could take them and have them structured in a very specific way? A simple ROI calculator for a proposal. So takes all the inputs and returns the ROI summary. So these are some very basic tools you could build. And this is my favorite one. I'm really behind on this project. Give me, analyze it, give me the best one or two actions that can get me back on track. So whatever it is that you find it yourself doing all the time, there's a pain point, note it, jot it down, have it, keep a log of all the different things. If you could have that magic wand, if you could build something, what would you build? And this is where I think it is so important for us to exercise this new muscle that we have. And that is the power of imagination. And we just typically don't do this because we don't think we can. But now, because we have these tools available, what if you could? What if you could literally talk into the air and describe what you want to have happen? This is my problem, and this is why I want to have it solved. If you could say that into one of these agents and literally say it, talk it, don't type it, just talk it, describe what the problem is, and have it be solved with a click of a button. Okay, maybe lots of clicks of buttons, maybe a lot of troubleshooting and iterations, but what if it could be solved? And that is the potential that I want you to think about as business leaders. What if you could imagine these solutions and encourage your teams today, right now, to experiment with these things? If they could have this tool, because it is available to them, what would they build? And set the expectations that it's probably not going to work. But the fact that you become a builder will make you a better customer of your IT departments because you understand what goes into building these solutions. It'll make you a more informed consumer of your engineering and IT resources. All right, I want to go in and see what's some of the comments here. All right, so let's see. Okay, um, Lynn just says, "This is very cool. Thanks for passing along how to bypass all the back end rigmarole." That's exactly the way to think about it. Jay says, "We monitor adverse events on social media." Oh, so this is what you're using with that QA. So you're using Bandwatch, pulled events out, and then you created a custom GPT. Again, custom GPTs are fantastic. We're going to be talking about that next week. So again, making the connections between Slack and my custom GPT to make it all work and flagging all the issues. Good luck with that, Jay. Again, all the power to you, and thank you for sharing that example. Let's see. Adam says, uh, Adam is loving using Lovable. Adam would love for you to share what you're doing with that. Uh, and so Adam says, I built one for business. I can build for someone else too. He's basically saying, anyone want to build an AI agent? Let me know. I would take Adam up on that offer if you wanted to. So this is again a quick trip down this messy hole of vibe coding. But I can tell you that from my experience, I'm hooked now. I'm keeping a log of all the other things I want to have done, and it's expanding what I'm able to do with AI, but also expanding the world of possibilities of what I could make. And I've always wanted to be a developer. I've always wanted to have this incredible power to just make things. So again, I encourage you to give it a try. Start with something very simple. Again, I've had this app floating around in my head for about 2 years now. As soon as generative AI came available, I'm like, if I could code, what would I make? And this is the thing. And I'm actually making it. So I'm excited that can happen. All right. I want to share with you what's going on next week. On the 24th, one of the things I'll be doing is demoing some of my AI best practices. So I'm going to pull out all of my various techniques of how I use generative AI. And the reason this sparked it is because again, in the past couple of presentations I've done, I keep getting the same question. How much of this presentation was made by AI? And I think that's coming from two places. It's like, how much of this is really you versus AI? And also, are you using AI to make these beautiful slides? How can I get in on that action? So I will show you all the different ways I'm using AI and all the different ways of my work and my life also as well. I'll pull out the tools I'm using, my techniques in being able to use multiple models, how I'm doing best practices around prompting, and I'll show you some of my custom GPTs too, and also how I'm starting to pull together tools like what I assume Jay is doing with things like Zapier to make and connect things that in the past just didn't connect with each other. So join me next week for a speedy demo of Charlene's life with AI. And I encourage you to, again, just dig deep into some of these tools that are available. Give it a try. Don't expect that you're going to be successful, but I can guarantee you it'll be a lot of fun. All right. I will see you next week. Oh, this is a comment from Lynn at the last minute. Very practical advice. Most valuable is experimenting safely. Thank you for emphasizing that, Lynn. Overcoming fear of failure is a key to stopping quiet quitting. Again, a great idea. Mediocre innovation and lead to a happier culture. So again, Lynn, you make a really good point in that when people are able to feel more agency in their jobs, they will feel more empowered. And I do believe that being able to create and use tools that are customized to you, that are working for you rather than against you, is a key part of that. Again, thank you so much. It's a privilege to be able to spend this time with you. All the best in your adventures with vibe coding and AI. And I will talk to you next week. Thanks.